Okay, we are back here on Purple Daily, last day from the Minnesota State Fair, and it just could not be any better out here. I want to remind you, if you missed any of Sage Rosenfels, our interview there, or if you didn't catch it, our breakdown of the roster, myself and Courtney Cronin, go check it out on iTunes. Just type in Purple Daily. Make sure you give a 5-star review as well. So if you like the show and the podcast, that other people can find it. That makes it easier for that to happen. So but we're going to debut something new today. We're not doing hot routes today. We want to do something different. NFL Law and Order, or Vikings Law and Order here, because Judd, you texted me over the weekend and said that you would like to try to indict the Vikings for malpractice. So let us begin.
On Purple Daily, our coverage is represented by two separate but equally important groups: the reporters who gather information and the analysts who criticize the team. These are their stories.
All right, Judd. Okay, so you want to indict the Vikings for malpractice for kicking, punting, and holding. Go ahead and state your case.
Actually, I'm going to be very specific, and the indictment is not malpractice, although that would be fine. But this is not a civil proceeding. This is a criminal one. So on the indictment, I am indicting Rick Spielman and the Minnesota Vikings for depraved indifference to special teams. All right? Depraved indifference. So I don't think they purposely did this, but the end result is so poor and so bad. The depraved indifference, of course, is the acquisition of Corey Vedvik from the Baltimore Ravens for a 5th-round draft pick.
That's new New York Jets Corey Vedvik,
exactly.
If you haven't heard.
So I am looking for – so I'm even going to leave out the whole punting thing, because you got to a place that you could actually argue is fine legally, football-wise, but the way you got there is not fine. And my stance is this. The indictment is being handed down because Mr. Spielman has told us how many times, in how many different ways, in how many press conferences, how much he values draft picks. He literally took one to the restroom and flushed it down the toilet. Depraved indifference of kicking.
Okay,
and punting, I guess.
Let me use a well-practiced, all's well that ends well defense, Judd. They ended up with an experienced kicker who was one of the highest field goal percentages ever in Dan Bailey. He won the job. If they had just brought someone else in for a kicking competition and Dan Bailey beat him, we would have said, oh, no big deal. He just beat the younger guy. And then on the day where everybody gets cut down, they find a veteran punter who is a very good holder, apparently, is really experienced there. That's something Matt Weil, I guess, could not do very well. And so at the end of training camp, yes, they flushed one 5th-round pick, but they end up with an experienced kicker, an experienced punter, so all is well that ends well. They're okay in this position of special teams.
But you're then overlooking the fact that they completely bungled how they got there, and any rank amateur football fan, heck, me, could have gotten them there. You didn't have to go through. The Vedvik thing was, and here's why. I'm indicting the Vikings to teach them a lesson here, okay? Here's why I'm doing it. Here's why the lesson becomes important. Because you not only tell me that you love your draft picks, and they're absolutely essential to the lifeblood, and Stephon Diggs is a 5th-round pick. So now you can't come back and tell me, oh, that's okay. It's just a 5th-round pick. You have to choose a path here. But the other reason is this. Poor Vedvik had no chance with this head coach. You know what I did? I let you skate last year. You were on probation. Daniel Carlson, I let you skate on that one. You used a draft pick, 5th round again, right? On Daniel Carlson. Mm-hmm. And he came here, and he clearly is not a bad kicker, has had success in Oakland since. But he came here, became a mental mess in the preseason. The second game in Green Bay, I don't have to go back to that. But after that, you said, okay, Rick, now you know. I'm going to allow you off on probation here, but never repeat the mistake of a young kicker for Zim again. And a year later, you did it. That's why this time I'm going tougher.
Okay, I think the best you've got, and I understand there's a pattern of behavior is what you're getting
Yes,
to.
I'm establishing a pattern of behavior, which every good lawyer does.
But I think the best that you've got here, giving away a 5th-round pick, considering that the 5th-round pick the Vikings made this year is on the practice squad, didn't even make the team. Most of them don't 5th, 6th, 7th-round picks. That's all you gave up. The best we can do for a deal is petty larceny. Like, yeah,
Oh no, 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 no! I'm not. I'm not dealing down to that.
However, that
No way.
yes, they were maybe. How about this? Reckless endangerment. Reckless endangerment
All
and
right, now you're
petty.
talking a little bit more.
They
Petty
endangered
yeah.
the situation, but they did not ultimately cause any harm
I am-
aside from the small price of a 5th round pick.
I am not going
That's
down
our
to a
deal.
Class E misdemeanor here. I'm not allowing you to talk this down. This is the second year. My God, lessons must be learned.
All right.
Lessons must be learned.
Judge Harrison, what do we think, Jonathan?
Well, Judd Zulgad found and established a pattern of behavior, so I'm going to find that the Vikings are guilty of this for reckless endangerment of their draft picks. I'm going to find them another 5th round pick since they seem so keen on using 5th round picks on special teamers. They now lose their next 5th round pick.
I will see you at the grand jury.
You are going to have to grand jury proceedings. That's what this is. Now we're proceeding to trial.
All right. So now and then we're going to have to do this, and I look forward to it in the future of charging the Vikings with different things.
Just for the
open.
Manny voiceover. That's why we have to do it.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this, Judd. They end up finding their punter. Dan Bailey is fine. Corey Vedvik will now become the best Jets kicker of all time. I think that's unquestioned, right? And Matt Weil is gone. So the guy who could not figure out how to hold for his kicker is gone. Now Dan Bailey should be better because of that, we assume. Clearly, they thought that part of Dan Bailey's problems last year was because he did not have a very good holder. And I think there's something to that. As much as I get to this conversation and go, I don't know, what am I supposed to tell you? Hold the ball, man. There is something to that of a holder being able to put it down the right way in the right rhythm for his kicker. And overall, at the end of the season, I think we'll probably look at this and say their kicking and punting was okay. I don't expect it to be the best in the league. I think Dan Bailey is over his prime. This punter has been doing it for a very long time. He's nothing overly impressive with his statistics.
He's here to hold, man.
But he is here to hold.
He's made it clear he's here to hold.
I think he'll be fine. This to me situation, and this is just my guess, this might go for a write that down that blows up in my face. But even though it took a long way to get here and it was weird and hilarious, we still got to a spot where I would bet more money on the kicking being fine, over 80% of field goals good, and the punting being fine and not giving up punt returns for touchdown. I would put more money on that than I would this thing's a disaster.
I have a question for you now, though.
Okay.
To go back to 2018. You had, now Ryan Quigley in 2017 was not great, but I think he was serviceable probably. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair word? At the end of training camp last year, right around this time, you decide to pick up Matt Weil, who I believe had been waived by Pittsburgh, right? And you jettison Quigley at that point and make Weil your punter. But more importantly now, from what we're finding out, or just as importantly probably, Matthew Coller, you make him your holder as well. And now we're basically told that he wasn't good at that job, which meant that you set Daniel Carlson up in more ways than one to fail. So that to me, we should now go back and say, okay, if you guys are telling me that Matt Weil couldn't hold, what the hell were you doing taking an already fragile 5th round pick who was, by the way, cost you a game? The Green Bay games, you're in the playoffs, right? What were you doing having Matt Weil show up in early September and then I guess saying he really can't hold well, but what the heck?
Well, they probably didn't know he couldn't hold well, but it is weird considering that Ryan Quigley was good at it. Yes. That he and Kai Forbath seemed to have a really good rapport, and Forbath kicked extremely well when it came to the field goals for them. So Quigley was doing it for Daniel Carlson the entire preseason and camp when he won the job, and then you sort of pull the rug out from under him and bring in another guy who you don't know. So what they're really guilty here of is constantly overthinking things that are probably fine and negligible in the differences between good and bad. I mean, for punting, for example, if Ryan Quigley, who I don't believe has gotten a job since, so maybe nobody thought that he was a great punter anymore, and he was like 35, I think, but they overthought that one in that Quigley could kick it 42, 43 yards. Their net was going to be somewhere around 40. And if he was slightly better at the holding thing and had a rapport with Daniel Carlson, then why would it make sense to go to Matt Weil? And Matt Weil's punting was totally fine. so you find somebody else to hold, but no, we can't do that. We got to bring in a new guy to hold.
Right.
It's like just when Dan Bailey kicks a 54-yarder and seems to be figuring it out with Wild, then they get rid of him, and now he's got to get chemistry with a new guy. And it's just this constant like carousel of you get off the bus, you get on the bus, we got a new kicker, new punter, new holder, this and this and this. And I just am not sure why they couldn't have just stuck with what worked as opposed to chasing their tail, sending draft picks places, using draft picks on specialists, and there's a new long snapper here too now. And I mean, all of it just sort of screams of you don't really know what you're doing, and you're just hoping to have rolled the dice and have it work.
And is this Rick? Is this Mike? And the thing that I don't get for Mike's purposes is kicker, long snapper, and punter. I don't need great ones, but I want to find reliable ones, preferably guys who have been around for a while. Give them those jobs and then walk away from it. Like this constant tinkering. If you had a young head coach who had grown up in special teams and said, I can identify these guys, I can do, okay, I sort of get that. But it seems to me that Mike can't stand these people for the most part. So no, but I mean seriously,
no, you're right.
Just get them what they've got now. Bailey and Colquitt, get them a couple of older guys and just say, okay, you're going to miss some. Mike's going to get really peeved. He's probably going to yell and scream. You're going to be like, sorry, Mike. And then you're going to continue to do your job. This thing of turning to like Carlson and Vedvik. I mean, tell me this. Aren't they mind bleeped from the second that they step foot in Egan? Because the way I saw Carlson and Vedvik, by the way, that first preseason game at Baltimore was unbelievable. And all of a sudden he gets here and it's sort of like a gong show circus, and the head coach clearly doesn't like kickers and punters.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, so I wrote this in my column at scorenorth.com. The other frustrating thing is when you get a young guy you traded a 5th round pick for, tell him and everybody else the job. Like this whole thing of, I don't know if he's going to kick or punt. That doesn't do anybody with that age. You're screwing around with people unnecessarily. Okay, if he's going to punt, awesome, he's going to punt. If he's going to kick, that's fine. But this whole thing of being, well, we've got this secret weapon and we're not going to tell you. At some point in time, do you really think the Chiefs are sitting there saying, oh my God, we play the Vikings in week blank and we're not going to know what Vedvik's going to do? Like, it's going to help Vedvik mentally to be like, here's your job. We're going to tell everyone, now go win that job.
Having him compete for both jobs was silly and ridiculous.
Yes.
I mean, it really was.
But it's being way too cute.
If you wanted him to be the punter, then have him come in and compete with the punter. If you want him to be the kicker, have him come and compete with the kicker. But these guys who do it, the best ones, they spend their entire life working on one of those skills.
Yeah.
Were we to really think that one guy could master both of them in 2019 at that high of a level? So I totally agree with you there. But I think ultimately they ended up in the right position, which is have 2 veterans. And if it blows up in your face, at least you went with guys who were proven.
I'm with you.
As opposed to just somebody like Vedvik who you had no idea what was going to happen once the guy started kicking football. So, they ended up in the right spot. They ate their egos a little bit to have to cut him and let him go to New York. And I'm sure that you were right that there was a hefty debate that went on at TCO Performance Center about whether to keep him or not. But ultimately, they just couldn't keep a guy who couldn't do either one exceptionally well, even if they gave up a 5th round pick.